Hi, Shana. Thank you
Hi.
so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I know we've got a lot of people in our audience that struggle with stress and how to manage it and, just live life with the stress or without the stress and trying to figure out how to balance, work and life with it. So, um, everybody who's watching, this is Shana. She is a certified consulting hypnotist and a subconscious mind coach. She's amazing at what she does, and I think her insights will be really helpful. So we will jump right into some of the questions. Now, we got these questions from a lot of you in groups that I'm a part of in our Facebook. So, a lot of this is going to speak directly to what our audience is looking at, and hopefully we can help some people. So, Shana, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Celeste. It's an
Yeah.
honor. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. I'm really glad that we were able to work out, getting you on and not taking too much of your time, but also helping out a bunch of people who need it, including myself. So
Yeah.
to jump right into it,
Mm.
I had a lady ask, how do you keep the sound of stress out of your voice when you're talking to prospects? So a lot of like our system, our platform is primarily about speaking to prospects on the phone.
Okay.
And so, when you've got a lot of stress, whether it be personal stress or work stress or whatever the case may be, it can sometimes come across in your voice. So how
Of
can you
course.
help control the sound of that coming through to the prospect?
So the first thing I want to say, Celeste, is when we communicate, only about 15% of what we're communicating is what we're saying, right?
Right.
Um, the rest of it is all non-verbal,
Mm-hmm.
even over the phone. So it's a lot of people think it's visual, how we're holding our body and that type of thing. And yes, a lot of that communication does come from visualizing what you're seeing in front of you, how nervous or confident the person looks, how they're standing, how they're holding themselves. But a lot of it comes from the voice, the tone of the voice, the speed of the voice, and subconsciously, we pick up a lot of communication from the way somebody is speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling anxious, that's going to come across in your voice. So my number one tip is going to be slow down.
Okay.
Slow down. And the reason why I say that is because if you listen to a lot of these motivational speakers or just speakers in general, what are they doing? They are talking in a very nice, very easy pace. And they pause in certain places. Only confident, relaxed people pause. When you're stressed and anxious, you tend to fasten up the pace and feel like you can't leave gaps in what you're saying. Why? Because you're just trying to get all the words out. And what does that do? That sounds like that person's completely out of control and can't wait for their words to get out. And sometimes they trip over their words and what does it do? It puts the person who's listening on edge rather than set them at ease. So my number one tip would be try slowing down and try slowing down even more
Yeah.
and take pauses. It actually helps you to come across as way more confident and in control if you take a pause and then you continue. Try it out, practice it, and it does help your breathing as well. When you slow your breathing down, you slow everything down and you feel much more relaxed. You just try it. We all know, people say to us all the time when we're stressed, Take a deep breath, slow it down. And it's the same when we're talking. If we're taking nice, comfortable breaths as we're talking, everything just slows down. And all of a sudden, guess what? We feel way more relaxed. That stress just kind of starts to dissipate. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Good.
It is, I mean, even just listening, thinking back to my introduction, I was very fast paced, and it's simply because, there's a lot of stress that comes along with knowing that you're being recorded, and and knowing that a ton of people are going to see it. And so it does make a big difference if you can, and I've seen it, time and time again, the pace of speakers, they're very, like you said, they're very relaxed. They're very decisive in the things that they say and how they say it and when they say it. And it really can have a huge effect on how people perceive you as a professional in whatever you're speaking about, but also, as to your inner kind of state of mind.
That's right, exactly. And it's something that you'd want to play around with and practice. And you'll notice how people respond to you differently when you fasten the pace and when you slow it down. So play around with it, have fun with it, and notice what happens. And then put it to work in your work day, and notice how people respond differently to you in your different pace. And once you trust the process, all of a sudden it will become a lot more natural to you.
In this, in this business, we do a lot of, scripts for agents. And you kind of have to make the script your own, of course, so that it's not you reading, but it's you speaking, even if it's specific words that you're speaking. But there is a lot of role playing that comes along with it too. A lot of people will role play within their offices with other agents to kind of get that script down and make it their own. And so, if you are role playing with someone in your office with a script, or even if you're just trying to, like you said, just working with slowing down your pace, or using maybe a different, putting a pause in here or putting a pause in there, or just being more direct with what you're trying to say. That would be a really good way, I think, to, try to work that out to see what works for different people. So try, this pace on one person in your office, and then try this pace with someone else in your office, and see, if you get different reactions, or if there's a same reaction based on what you're changing up.
Yeah, great advice.
So being that, we're all trying to relieve stress from work, but also with family. So how do you find the balance when you get stress from work, but then you go home and you get stress from family as well? Is there a way to kind of, separate the two, or at the very least try to not let things bother you as much? Build up's a good,
yeah.
good word.
I see a lot of people who want to manage their stress and their anxiety better, because it's not something that comes naturally. It's something you have to learn to do. And once you do learn, and you finally find that these resources are integrated naturally, then it's no longer a process. It just happens. But that, you have to put a little bit of effort in, first of all, to learn how to cope. We call them coping strategies. So there are a number of those that are very, very powerful. They're not difficult, they're not complicated. I work from the premise that we shouldn't overcomplicate what we don't need to. Make it easy as possible. So it's not difficult, but it is different. So there are certain things that you can do at the end of the workday to offload that pressure. I think pressure is a word that comes up when people describe how they feel at the end of the workday, to let that go before they then start their evening with their family and whatever comes up in that kind of goldfish bowl of whatever people are dealing with in their family units, especially with this pandemic. I mean, goodness me, wow, it really has the emotional wellness of, I think, everyone around the globe has taken a dive. And because, people have been at home and all the pressure, the divorce rate has increased. People have lost their jobs. People, I could go on and on, but so now really is the time more than ever to take control of your emotional wellness. Learn some coping strategies that you can put in place, and there are many that work for you, because everybody's different. Everybody has a different way of perceiving the world and the effect of stress and anxiety on them. So it's about finding that perfect formula of the different strategies that you can do. One of them that is not difficult, but I teach all of my clients, I call it the mindful minute. Okay. Mindful minute, because it doesn't take a lot of time, especially for busy professionals. We're always looking for things that don't take a lot of time, but are effective. So I know that during the day it can be, the pressure is going to build, isn't it? It's going to build and it's going to keep going unless you release that pressure, unless you find something that you can do that will bring that pressure down so that it doesn't reach that very top where there's an explosion. Right. So I teach a really cool trick. It's called a mindful minute. It's literally 60 seconds. And you do this maybe, 3 or 4 times a day. Just take 4 minutes, but you break it down to 60 seconds each, where whatever it is that you're doing, you take a break for 60 seconds and you just become completely absorbed in whatever it is that's happening in that moment, be it having a drink of coffee and imagining for that 60 seconds, it's the first time you've ever tasted coffee, and really enjoy it. Okay. Really enjoy it for 60 seconds. And it's amazing how much more refreshed, how much more calm and focused you'll feel having taken those 60 seconds break, that mindful minute, whatever it is you want to call it, and then coming back to whatever it is that you're dealing with. You'll be amazed the difference if you do this 4 or 5 times a day compared to not doing it at all. I dare you to try it. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. As you said that, it kind of reminded me of, we always hear about being grateful and gratitude and seeing things from different perspectives. And so, I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and then I have a teenager as well. Bless you. Bless you. Wow. So my little ones are always just amazing me, at the way they view the world. And so as you said that, imagine that it's the first time you've ever had a sip of coffee. It just reminds me of, becoming more childlike. Exactly. In our view of some things. And not necessarily as a child drinking coffee, specifically, but, kind of your first time doing things and experiencing the wonder. That was the word I was just about to add. Yes, absolutely. Because we're so used to just things, aren't we? Mm-hmm. But just things being the way that they are. And it really is amazing, that mind shift that can occur if you look at it from a different perspective and allow yourself to get childlike almost. All of a sudden, things go into perspective. They shift automatically, and your mind just gets this clarity, and you're allowed to hop in and hop out of what's going on. The pressure just all of a sudden just dissipates just for those 60 seconds, and it's amazing how you feel after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be amazing if, a lot of us could take that mindful minute and just kind of depressurize and start fresh again.
Yeah, and if you are in a place where you're working separate from where your family is, or you're, whether you're working from home or in an office or whatever it is, do practice that, especially at the end of the day. Before then, you either enter the home or open the office door, whatever, before you start your family time. And if you feel like you need a break from family time, I'm sure you can excuse yourself for 60 seconds to go and do that, and then come back and notice how much calmer and how much more resilient you feel, even when it feels like there's all this crazy going on.
Yeah. When, especially working, a lot of people working from home, it's very much, there is no separation of work and home, because you're working from home. So you've got your work stress, and then you've got your family stress, and it's all at once. And that can be very, very difficult. But I can see how, taking 60 seconds, just a break from everything at the moment, and just taking a moment to reset.
And that's what it is. You're pushing the reset button, and your mind will thank you for it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But with everything, you've got to try it. It's not going to happen without you trying it. So that's why I said, dare you to try it. Let me know. I'd love to know.
Yeah. So with speaking to prospects over the phone, a lot of times you get people on the phone who just make it very difficult to keep a stress level down. So one person in my audience asked, what do you do when you feel like killing the customer through the phone?
Yes. Now, first of all, we have to try and put ourselves in a place of when we don't know what that person is going through, what type of day they've had, what life they're living. So being able to, for a moment, not take it personally, whatever it is that they're throwing at you. They're not doing this to you personally. They may just be feeling that they need to let something out, and they have no other place to do it, and you happen to be at the other end of the phone, right?
Right.
So sort of become anti-fragile, and so maybe I don't know, I love post-it notes. If you could see my screen right now, I have a rainbow of post-it notes of words that I want to use subliminally to help me be the best I can be. So anti-fragile is a great word, because it helps me to not take things personally. Because it's so easy to, isn't it?
It is. It's very easy to.
And a quick technique that I have given my clients when it comes to dealing with people, mostly family members, they can't get away from, but they either irritate them or they are hurtful, or whatever. They're not going to change. It's the same as that person on the other end of the phone. They're not going to change. But you can change. And you can project some of your goodness on them, whether they want to receive it or not. So it's almost like a mental game. it's almost like, well, if I'm doing good and I'm sending my goodness to them, then it prevents their nastiness or their aggression or their anger or whatever it is from penetrating back on me. Does that make
Okay.
sense a little bit?
It does.
So the way that this is the game that I teach my clients to play is imagine all the goodness, all the wonderful stuff that you've got, the love in your heart, as almost like a golden globe, a ball of golden goodness. And as you're talking to that person, imagine that you're sending them some of that. So it's almost like you're transmuting it down the phone or however you're communicating to them to help them out with whatever it is that they're struggling with, because you're feeling it, right? And you're imagining that it's bouncing backwards and forwards between the two of you. Now, if you concentrate on that rather than the tone of voice or the things that they're saying to you or whatever it is, all of a sudden everything just softens.
Okay.
Just goes away. And those feelings that you might have felt beforehand about wanting to do harm to that person because of how awful they are to you, that just dissipates. It just doesn't exist anymore. And you just feel yourself relaxing into the process, and it actually feels really good.
Yeah, it would be, I can see how that would be helpful, kind of like a rose-colored glasses type of thing.
Yeah, because you can't change them, but you can help them in your own little way, and that makes you feel good.
Right.
It changes your state of mind from, I want to kill this person, to, I want to help that person, so I'm going to help them. It just softens the whole process.
Okay. So what are some easy to see signs of, like, when I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling, kind of low? What are some things that we can look for to know when things are starting to happen and you need to take that break, or you need to kind of change up your mindset a little bit?
So first of all, it's recognizing that this isn't normal, right? It's kind of like there are many different things that we do that is low level anxiety, or I don't want to speak to the diagnosis of, clinical depression. I'm talking about low mood, when you're just not feeling right in yourself. And sometimes it's difficult to recognize, when you're feeling anxious, or what anxiety actually looks like for you. And that feeling of low mood. I mentioned it to you before we pressed record, when we were just chatting. Just feeling or stepping into that, everything has to be perfect, everything has to be right, or procrastination. I can't start this for whatever reason. You give yourself every excuse under the sun, or even you can't finish something because it has to be perfect or it has to be a certain way, and so you're preventing yourself from actually finishing the project or the thing that you're supposed to be finishing, or whatever it is. There's many different aspects that we don't realize is actually a type of anxiety that is very easily controlled if you know how. And we make a lot of excuses, and we say, oh, I'm a perfectionist, or I'm a procrastinator, or I'm lazy, or but actually it's not. It's anxiety, and so to recognize some of those things, then once you recognized it and you understand what it is, then you can start doing something about it.
Excellent. So if you start seeing, some of those signs, what is something that, just a simple, we talked about the mindful minute, but is there something else that we can do that, might just kind of switch it for just a second, or something that we can do, each time over time that will.
So are we talking about the perfectionism or the procrastination, that type of thing? Or are we talking about the physical, I feel anxious?
More of the physical aspect of it.
Yeah. So one of the things you want to watch out for, one of the first signs of that anxiety is looming, is when you are changing your breathing. It's one of the first signs. So typically people who are feeling anxious, their breathing will either become very shallow and rapid, or will stop. You'll just hold your breath. It's one of the two. So the first thing is just to recognize it's happening, because that's one of the first signs that something else is going to get more intense, because there's always then something else that follows with when you're feeling anxious, right? You just get your heart might race a little bit, you might get a bit sweaty, feeling of uncomfortable, and then if it escalates from there, you could be heading into some kind of panic episode, or that anxiety episode, or that kind of thing. So really, the trick is to be very conscious of the first sign. So when I have clients that come to me who want to control their anxiety, I always say to them, well, how do you do anxiety? You don't have it, you do it. Everybody does it differently. So how do you know that you do it? Okay. People don't generally ask themselves that question, or has ever been asked that question before. Yeah. And so what that does is it makes you very consciously aware of the first sign that you're starting to feel anxious. Once you have that, once you start to recognize your first sign, then we can do something specific to you to help you to take control of your response to anxiety, and change it so that you can start to control it, and therefore it just disappears.
Gotcha.
Right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because everybody does it differently. Everybody does it differently. And it's about finding your perfect formula that eradicates it, that has it under control. And so that, the thing with anxiety itself is, what happens is you end up fearing the anxiety itself rather than the thing that it was sparking in the first place. So once you figure all that out, then you can get rid of it.
Okay. So back to what you said before about pressure builds.
Yes.
And kind of rolling that into the perfectionism aspect of the conversation, how do we take the pressure off of ourselves when we've done everything we possibly can for a client, can't find a better solution for them, we've given them our best, our highest and best that we can absolutely do, and it's still not a perfect solution. So how can we release that need to be, to get it right, to get it perfect?
Yes. So our biggest critic lives in our own mind.
Ourselves, yeah.
Right? And so it's all about the things that you're saying to yourself in that moment. Right? And a lot of people are saying those, or asking those what if questions back to themselves. What if this is going to happen? What if that's going to happen? What if I could have done it better, quicker, more, whatever? What if, right? And what if thinking is a sign of anxiety. Right? So to neutralize the what if thing, do you identify with what if thinking? Yes.
I do. Okay. And in the past, I've identified it as, being logistical or proactive, or, seeing all the possibilities and just, planning accordingly. But sometimes it's not about what actually could happen, but it's more of a fantastical what could happen. Like, not, well, what if what if we fall off the face of the earth?
Yes.
It's a fantastical, what if. It's not reality.
Right.
Not
and that's called,
but it's still something that you're worrying about.
Right. And that's called catastrophizing.
Yes.
Right.
I do that with my husband. If he doesn't, so he rides motorcycles. I ride as well. But when he goes off on a guy's trip and, I know I can't get a hold of him for hours at a time because he's on a motorcycle. But if I don't hear from him for, 10 hours, then I do catastrophize. I'm like, what if he's laying in a ditch? What if he's, what if someone got hurt and I have no way of finding out because I can't get in touch with him.
Right.
And that's, part of my personal anxiety stuff. So
So to counteract that, I speak to your husband and say, do me a favor, just send me an emoji or something to tell me that you're okay after a certain amount of hours. I mean, I think that's pretty natural. If you think you're going to hear from him after a few hours and you haven't after another 5, I would say that you're justified to think that something's happened. But in situations where you're what ifing and it's not to fear somebody's safety, right? It's to do with work, or something that is less emotive. There is a way that you can easily neutralize that and to calm that way of thinking and constant questioning in your mind down, and that's to answer it with 2 simple words. So what?
Okay.
So what if, whatever it is, so what? So what if that does happen? And so what if that does happen? And keep answering so what question. So what if that really does happen? And so what if that does happen? And keep going until you get to the point where there is no more question because you've answered them all.
Okay.
Right? You'll find that what happens is instead of your mind elevating into anxiety, it will start to be calmed by the response of, and so what if that happens?
Instead of being fearful of the result, you can talk yourself down.
Yeah. Because if you continue with the what if, you can even hear it in the energy in my voice. What if this happens? What if that happens? But what if this happens? You keep going with that, and what you're doing is you're giving the anxiety energy.
Right.
If you then stop it in its tracks and start answering it with, so what if that happens? And so what if that happens? And so what if that happens? What you're doing is you're bringing down the anxiety by thinking through what happens if, and what you'll notice is by answering that what if with so what, it will resolve. You'll figure out there's nothing you can do about it. So what? Eventually, when you get to the end of it.
Or you'll figure out that it's, a simple solution.
Yes.
Or, something that's not quite as anxiety worthy.
Not quite as catastrophic as you would have implied in the first go round.
Right. Okay. So, what should people look for as far as emotional help support if they feel like their anxiety or stress or whatever is beginning to get the better of them? We all know that we can go see a professional. A lot of us can't, though, financially or whatever the reason may be. What should we look for in an emotional support?
Well, first of all, I would always suggest that you speak to your doctor, your general practitioner, to just to have a conversation, so they're aware of what you're feeling, and they can offer help however, whether you take it or not. That's important. There are a lot of resources available if finances are something that is a barrier to seeking help of a professional that deals with anxiety and stress and overwhelm and that type of thing. There's a lot of resources online. You just have to Google them. And the best thing I would say to you is, if you find a resource that sounds good to you, try it out. Don't dismiss it. There are many things that you can do just to get you going that will take the edge off things. But there's going to be no coping strategy in the world that will be helpful unless you actually put it into practice.
Right.
So I would highly recommend just to start off with whatever it is that you're noticing. Google that and see what the answers are. Now, financially, you say there are people that can't afford help. There are a lot of very, very cost-effective resources that are available that don't cost a lot. Now, it's not going to be the be-all and end-all answer, but it will be helpful. For myself, I work with clients one-to-one, and yes, there's a cost to that, but I also offer other different types of help that are extremely cost effective for those people that can't afford to work with me one-to-one. So you want to look for resources that suit you. What is it you're looking for? Have an idea in your mind before you go looking of the type of thing that you're looking for, and I guarantee you'll find it. But always talk to your doctor first, just to make sure that there's nothing that you're missing. Mm-hmm. Because we don't know what we don't know, do we?
Right.
But you are looking for coping strategies.
Yes.
That's the first thing that you want to be looking forward to. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, Shana, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much again for taking some time to talk to us. And I really feel like the information you've given is going to help, even if it helps 5 people.
Wonderful.
I will call that a win.
Absolutely. Me too. Absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity. It's been fun chatting with you.
You as well. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.